Why are you doing all this? Have you ever truly asked yourself? Not the surface level question, not what's my next goal, or how can I earn more, but the real one, the uncomfortable one. The question that lingers in the silence after a long day. Why are you working so hard for a life that doesn't feel like yours? This is the question you avoid. The one you bury beneath your to-do lists, your schedules, your long-term plans. Because asking it means risking everything you've built. And yet, you feel it, don't you? That quiet dissonance, that aching sense that something is missing. You're not unhappy, but you're not alive either. You're functioning, you're achieving, but you're not living. Every morning you wake up, check your phone, sip your coffee, sit in traffic, walk into your office, or into your home office now, and begin another day of effort, another day of striving. But striving for what? Retirement? The mythical age of 65? When you'll finally rest, finally travel, finally create, finally enjoy. But what if you never make it? What if someday never comes? This isn't fear-mongering. This is math. This is life. How many people do you know who spent their whole lives waiting for retirement, only to get sick, burn out, or pass away before they ever truly lived? How many people do you know who woke up at 65 and realized they had no idea who they were without their job title? We were never taught to ask this question, because the system doesn't want you to. Because if you did, the system would break. We're conditioned to follow the path. School, degree, career, mortgage, promotion, retirement. And if you play your cards right, you'll get to enjoy a few golden years before your body slows down and your regrets catch up. That's the deal. But here's the truth. You don't have to accept it. The first lie we're told is that life is linear. That success looks one way. That stability is the highest good. The second lie is that questioning the path is dangerous. That to ask why is rebellious. But isn't it more dangerous not to ask? Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And yet most people never find their why, because they're too busy surviving their how. They wake up tired, because they've been running in the wrong direction. They feel hollow, because they've been chasing goals that weren't theirs. If you're reading this and something inside you stirs, listen. That's not discontent. That's your soul trying to get your attention. You've done everything you were supposed to do. You've been responsible, reliable, productive. And yet something feels off. You've built a life you don't feel present in. So ask yourself, what am I really working for? Is it money, security, legacy, or is it just inertia? You wake up, you work, you sleep, you repeat. Is that a life, or is it a slow death? Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. And the modern world makes that easy. With enough noise, enough scrolling, enough deadlines, you never have to feel. You never have to question. You just keep going. But one day something breaks. A relationship ends. A loved one passes. You get fired. Or worse, you get promoted and realize the ladder you've been climbing is leaning against the wrong wall. That's when the question erupts. What was all this for? And if you've never asked it before, it hits like a tidal wave. But what if you didn't wait until 65 to ask? What if you ask now? Not because you want to throw everything away, but because you want to stop betraying yourself. You are not here to perform a role until death. You are not here to numb yourself into functionality. You are not here to survive your own life. You are here to become who you are. That requires confrontation. That requires courage. That requires asking the question you've spent years avoiding. What if I'm not supposed to do this forever? What if there's more? What if the version of success you've been sold isn't success at all? What if true success looks like alignment, freedom, joy, purpose? And what if you already know what that looks like for you, but you're afraid to admit it? Because admitting it means changing everything. But here's the twist. Not changing is just as costly. Every day you ignore the truth, a part of you withers. Every time you silence the question, your energy fades. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a 10-step plan. You need honesty. Honesty with yourself. About what matters. About what hurts. About what you've been avoiding. This isn't about quitting your job tomorrow. This is about waking up. Waking up to the truth that your time is limited. Waking up to the fact that no paycheck is worth your soul. Waking up to the possibility that you were made for more than this. And maybe, just maybe, the life you truly want is waiting on the other side of the question you never dared to ask. So ask it. Let it unravel you. Let it guide you. Because once you ask, you can't go back. And that's the beginning of everything. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I'll do it later, when things settle down, when I have more time, after I retire"? Deferred life. That's what they call it in silence. A life postponed, delayed, shelved for another day. But what if that other day never comes? We were taught to wait. Work now, live later. Sacrifice the present. Reap the rewards someday. It's the same narrative, told in different languages, across different cultures. First the grind, then the glory. First the duty, then the dream. But here's the truth. Most people never reach the dream. Not because they fail, but because by the time they arrive, they've forgotten how to live. They've become so used to postponing joy, they no longer recognize it when it's finally allowed. This is the myth of deferred life, and it is one of the most dangerous illusions of the modern age. Psychologically, it gives you permission to endure what's intolerable. It allows you to rationalize unhappiness, because the pain is for a reason. But is it? Are you enduring or are you escaping? Henry David Thoreau once wrote, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, and what is more desperate than postponing your soul for the promise of a better future?" Let me ask you this. Have you ever met someone who waited their whole life for retirement, only to realize they were too tired, too sick, or too scared to live once they got there? This isn't hypothetical. It's real. Talk to any financial planner. They'll tell you how many people spend their whole careers stockpiling savings only to spend retirement in a doctor's office. Is that what you're working for? A future you're too broken to enjoy? What would you do if I told you that deferring life is a trick? A program running silently in your operating system? From the first day of school, we're conditioned to earn gold stars, grades, degrees. Then jobs, promotions, paychecks. It's always forward, always next. We're trained to value delayed gratification so highly, we forget that some things can't be delayed. Your children's childhood, your own vitality, the feeling of waking up excited instead of exhausted. These can't wait. They won't wait. Every year you defer joy, a piece of you is buried beneath routine. And slowly, you forget the sound of your own laughter. What's worse? You start to call that normal. But it's not normal. It's numbing. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was 56, vice president at a firm she helped build from the ground up. Everyone envied her success, her home, her status, her control. But Sarah hadn't painted in 30 years. She used to be an artist. She gave it up because it didn't pay. She told herself she'd return to it when she retired. Then one day she walked into the hospital for a routine checkup. Stage 4. It was too late for treatment, too late for painting, too late for later. She told me with tears in her eyes. I thought I had more time. We all think we have more time, until we don't. And that's the great tragedy of deferred life. It assumes the future will be there waiting for us. But life doesn't work like that. No one is promised old age. No one is promised time. You are here now. You are alive now. And that's the only guarantee you'll ever have. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." So look inside. Be honest. What have you deferred? What passions? What relationships? What parts of yourself have you silenced in the name of practicality? You might say, "But I have responsibilities." Of course you do. We all do. But let me ask, are your responsibilities supposed to cost your aliveness? Are your obligations supposed to replace your purpose? You were not born to be a machine. You were not born to spend decades preparing for a single chapter of rest. You were born to experience, to evolve, to feel. And feeling can't wait until 65. Imagine this. You're 70, sitting on a bench, looking back. What will you regret? Will you regret not working more? Or will you regret not dancing when you had the legs to? Not traveling when your body could handle the flights? Not hugging your kids when they still wanted to be hugged? This isn't about abandoning your career. It's about reclaiming your life. It's about refusing to sacrifice decades of your prime years for a myth. The myth that someday you'll have time. The myth that someday you'll be free. The myth that someday is even real. Freedom isn't a place. It's a mindset. It's not in your bank account. It's in your decisions. Every day, you're voting with your time. And time is the one currency you can't earn back. So the question isn't, can you afford to live now? The question is, can you afford not to? Somewhere inside you, a part remembers. The 12-year-old who wanted to build rockets. The 22-year-old who wanted to write novels. The 30-year-old who dreamed of backpacking across the world. They're all still in you, waiting, not for retirement, not for permission, but for you. Don't let them die waiting. Live now. Not recklessly, not foolishly, but intentionally. Give yourself moments, even if they're small, even if they're stolen between meetings, even if they're whispered instead of shouted. Because a life full of small awakenings is better than a life built on one grand illusion. The myth of deferred life is seductive, but the truth is louder. The truth is, you're already enough. You're already worthy, and you don't have to wait to begin. So don't. Begin now. Even if it's messy, even if it's scary, even if it's slow, the only life you're guaranteed is the one you're in. Don't defer it. Live it. What does security really mean to you? A stable job? A consistent paycheck? A pension at the end of the road? A house with a mortgage? A carefully planned retirement account? Most people spend their lives chasing security. We're told it's the responsible path, the intelligent choice, the ultimate goal. Safety, stability, control. But have you ever asked yourself, is it real? Or is it just a story we've been sold? Let's break it down. Security, in its modern form, is often equated with employment. We're taught that having a full-time job offers us protection from the chaos of the world. Health benefits, a salary, structured hours. It feels safe. But is it? How many people have woken up one morning to find out their job is gone? Not because they failed, but because the economy shifted, leadership changed, or a decision was made in a boardroom far away. How secure is your position when it depends on forces you cannot control? The pandemic proved this. Businesses shuttered overnight. Entire industries collapsed. Millions unemployed, confused, scared. Years of loyalty meant nothing against a spreadsheet of budget cuts. Security, it turns out, was an illusion. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And chasing security is one of the most socially acceptable ways to avoid facing your true self. Because if you're focused on surviving, you don't have time to ask deeper questions. Questions like, am I living the life I want? Do I even like who I've become? Am I building a future I'll be proud of? We trade dreams for security. But what we often receive isn't security, it's predictability. And predictability isn't safety. It's just repetition, a numbing rhythm that mimics peace but denies growth. Nietzsche once said, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die." And yet so many people cling to situations that no longer serve them, just because they're familiar. That's not security. That's fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of risk. Fear of stepping outside the lines society drew for you. But real security never comes from the outside. Not from jobs, not from titles, not from savings accounts. Real security is internal. It's the knowing that no matter what happens, you can respond. You can adapt. You can rise. Let me tell you about Adam. Adam worked in tech. High salary. Modern apartment. The kind of career path people admire. He did everything right. Saved. Invested. Networked. But every morning, he woke up with a dull ache. Not physical, existential. He didn't feel safe. He felt trapped. The job consumed him. The meetings, the deadlines, the politics. He had no time to think, to breathe, to ask himself what he wanted. But the money was good, and the resume looked impressive. He told himself, "I'll do this for 5 more years, then I'll take a break." Then came the layoffs. He was gone. Just like that. And with it, the illusion shattered. He said to me, "I thought I was secure. But the truth is, I never felt less safe than when I depended entirely on something I couldn't control." That was the moment Adam stopped chasing security. Instead, he began cultivating resilience. He started a small business, not because it was safe, but because it was real. He built skills, connections, systems. He invested in himself, not just his retirement account. And over time, he found something deeper than security. He found confidence, because that's the secret no one tells you. Confidence is the real security. The belief that you can handle whatever comes, that you can rebuild if necessary, that you are the source of your future. The world is uncertain, always has been, always will be. But instead of insulating yourself from change, what if you became the kind of person who could thrive within it? Instead of fearing volatility, what if you became anti-fragile, stronger because of it? The lie of security is that it will save you from pain. But pain is part of life. Growth requires it. Reinvention demands it. Trying to avoid pain through stability is like refusing to walk, so you'll never fall. But then you'll never move. Real power comes from mobility, not stability. From flexibility, not fixation. When you're no longer desperate to feel secure, you're finally free to become who you are. So let me ask again, what does security mean to you? Is it a paycheck? A pension? Or is it knowing who you are when everything around you changes? What's more secure? Living in fear of losing what you have, or trusting yourself to create what you need? You are not weak for questioning the path. You are not reckless for dreaming of more. You are human, and humans are not meant to live in cages of comfort. You are meant to grow, to stretch, to risk, because the greatest risk is never the one you take by changing. It's the one you take by staying the same. Every day you cling to the illusion of security, you shrink. But every time you choose courage over comfort, you expand. And with each step, you realize you don't need to feel safe to begin. You need to begin to feel strong. So break the illusion. Step into uncertainty. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. Security was never the point. Becoming who you are, that's the point. And no one can take that away from you. What is risk? We often think of it as something dangerous, something uncertain, something to avoid. But here's the irony. Most people are terrified of the wrong things. We fear quitting the job we hate. We fear starting the business we dream about. We fear moving to a new country, ending a toxic relationship, saying what we really think. Because we're told those are risky. But let me ask you a better question. What if staying is the real risk? What if the most dangerous thing you could do is stay exactly where you are, simply because it's familiar? Most people define risk as change. But change is inevitable. Risk is what happens when you don't adapt. You don't get to avoid risk by standing still. You just choose a different kind. There's the risk of growth, and the risk of regret, the risk of building something uncertain, and the risk of watching your soul slowly die in certainty. Which one are you really afraid of? Mark Twain once said, 20 years from now you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. Disappointment doesn't come from falling. It comes from never jumping. The comfort zone, it's a trap, a seductive, padded cell for your potential. Yes, risk has pain, but comfort has corrosion, a slow, silent decay, of spirit, of desire, of authenticity. Risk has fear, but fear has energy, and energy is life. The question is not, how do I avoid risk? It's which risk am I willing to take? Let's talk about Emma. Emma was a lawyer, brilliant, sharp, respected, but she hated it. Every morning was a negotiation between her alarm clock and her dignity. She wanted to be a teacher, always had, but the thought of leaving law, of losing the salary, the prestige, the approval, unthinkable, until the day she broke down, not because of stress, but because of emptiness. She realized she'd been risking her joy, her purpose, her sanity, every single day. So she left. It wasn't easy. The pay cut hurt. The self-doubt screamed. But she was finally alive. And she told me this. I always thought leaving was the risk, but staying was killing me. You see, the real risk is not losing money. It's losing yourself. Not failing in front of others, but dying quietly inside. Every time you silence your inner voice, you pay a price. Every time you betray your values for security, you lose something sacred. Yes, people will judge you. Yes, you may stumble. Yes, you will feel fear. But those are the signs you're actually living. Real life isn't sterile. It's messy, unpredictable, beautiful. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Your life isn't meant to be a straight line. It's meant to be a series of courageous steps. And sometimes risk is exactly what saves you. When you risk truth, you gain authenticity. When you risk failure, you gain freedom. When you risk rejection, you gain connection. You don't become wise by avoiding failure. You become wise by surviving it. So what are you really risking by staying? More of the same? Another year lost? The slow fading of your ambition? What's more terrifying, making a move or looking back in 30 years wondering what might have been? Most people fear change. But change is the only constant. The real question is, will you change on purpose or by accident? Will you let life shape you blindly? Or will you shape your own life, risk and all? If you wait until you feel safe, you'll never move. Because safety isn't a feeling. It's a story. The most successful people you admire, they were scared too. They just moved anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's choosing what matters more than fear. So what matters to you? Comfort or aliveness? Familiarity or fulfillment? Security or self-respect? You already know the answer. You've just been trained to doubt it. But inside, there's a voice. The same voice that whispered to you when you were young. The one that dared to dream. It's still there, underneath the noise, waiting, not for the right time, but for your permission. The real risk is not in changing your life. The real risk is forgetting that you can. So take the step, speak the truth, make the move. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be tired of pretending you're not dying inside. And when you do, when you finally risk being yourself, you won't just survive. You'll wake up. And that, my friend, is the beginning of real life. Because the only risk worth fearing is never truly living at all. What does the end look like to you? Retirement? An escape? An arrival? Is it sitting on a beach somewhere, drink in hand, finally resting after decades of labor? Or is it something murkier? An endpoint we don't understand but quietly dread? We spend most of our lives aiming at the end. But what if the target we're chasing was never meant to be the goal? What if the end we envision is just another illusion? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The version of retirement that's been sold to you, the golden years, the payoff, the reward, is often a lie. Not because rest is wrong, but because deferring life until the end is. Think about it. You work for 40 plus years. You put dreams on hold. You silence curiosity. You wait. Then one day, you cross the invisible finish line. And what are you left with? Time? Maybe. Energy? Often not. Purpose? That's where the real problem begins. When your identity is built entirely on what you do, what happens when you stop doing it? Who are you when the meetings disappear? When the title fades? When your calendar is blank? Most people are completely unprepared for this. Not because they didn't save enough money, but because they never asked a deeper question. What am I really living for? And the truth is, many never had a good answer. They inherited goals, adopted dreams, followed scripts written by someone else. And now, at the so-called end, they feel disoriented, not relieved. There's a reason so many people feel depressed after retirement. It's not because they miss their job. It's because they never discovered their deeper why. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." The end isn't retirement. The end is meaninglessness. So let's redefine it. Let's stop asking, how can I retire safely? And start asking, how can I live purposefully? Because the truth is, you were never meant to just work, retire, and die. You were meant to evolve. Each chapter of life demands new questions, not just new strategies. In youth, you ask, what do I want to do? In adulthood, what must I build? But in maturity, the real question becomes, what do I want to become now? If you've spent decades chasing someone else's dream, maybe the most radical thing you can do at this stage is finally claim your own. It's not too late. You're not too old, too stuck, too far gone. Because the end isn't fixed. The end is a story, and you can change the ending. Let me tell you about James. James retired at 63. Successful, respected, financially stable. But within a year, he fell into depression. Not because life got worse, but because it got quiet. He had no plan for himself beyond a career. He said, "I spent my whole life being useful. Now I feel invisible." But James didn't give up. He volunteered. Then he started mentoring young men without fathers. Then he started writing essays, short stories, reflections. And suddenly, James didn't feel retired. He felt reborn. He told me, the second half of life isn't the slow walk to the grave. It's the deeper part of the river. That's the shift. From building a living to creating a legacy. From doing to becoming. The end isn't when you stop working. It's when you stop wondering. Stop asking. Stop creating. But if you're still asking questions, there is no end. You can rewrite the rules. You can retire from a job without retiring from life. You can become a student again, a teacher, a builder, a lover, a seeker. Whatever the world told you retirement looks like, it's optional. You get to define what this phase means. It doesn't need to be slow, or small, or passive. It can be expansive, spiritual, alive. You've been climbing for years. But maybe the summit isn't the final stop. Maybe it's the place with the best view. A moment to ask, now that I've arrived, where do I go next? So what's your next evolution? What stories do you still need to tell? What passions still burn quietly within? What gifts have you yet to give? If you woke up tomorrow and had to begin again, what would you create? This isn't the end. It's a doorway. Not out, but in. Into who you really are. Not what you've done. Not what you own. but who you are when no one's watching. Redefining the end means rejecting the script and writing a new one where age isn't a limit, but a lens, where time isn't something to fear, but to savor. The second half of life isn't about shrinking. It's about deepening into truth, into wisdom, into yourself. So if you thought it was over, surprise, it's just beginning.